Welcome back to the Spectre Creative Channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, collector and professional toy maker, which gives me a unique perspective. And today, we're talking about the amazing toy line, the Changeable Robot. Okay, no, we're not talking about that. But what we are talking about is non-licensed Transformers toys. I made a video a little bit back about bootleg toys in general, or unlicensed, fakes, whatever you want to call them. In Transformer fandom, this is called third-party Transformers, but that's actually not the correct use of the term, but it doesn't matter. That's the term fans use, so we're going to use that for the moment. So what are third-party Transformers? Well, they can range from quite a few different things, and they can range in quite a few price points. There's, very cheap sort of knockoffs or bootlegs. There are very weird combinations where toys that are clearly look like Transformers are paired up with toys that are not part of the Transformers universe. And there's ones that look like they really could be released by Hasbro. Even the packaging is very similar, but the brand name is changed and some of the legal names are missing, as well as the logo, the Decepticon or Autobot logo, which tends to be a key part of actually being a Transformer. But otherwise, all sorts of robotic characters that fit in with Transformers are made. So the big question is, why does Hasbro allow this? What's in it for the fans, and where did this type of business come from? So let's dive in and see if we can talk about the history and interest of third-party Transformers. So the first thing is there's lots of different things that are offered in third-party. There are things like accessories. There are things like extra parts, like different hands, different gloves, different weapons that are sold in packs. It's not just one type of item that what the fans call third party. And again, I know third party doesn't mean that actually in the industry, so I tend to cringe every time I say that. But I'm going to use the term because that's what the fans call it, and I'm trying to make sure this is as easy to understand as possible. So yes, they can range from weapons to add-on parts to even, sort of mini transforming robots like this tape cassette here that is actually designed to work not only with the Transformers line as an individual item, but they can fit right into Soundwave or a third-party unlicensed Soundwave and work just like a regular cassette tape that would pop into him. So, in other words, they're kind of parts that add to the collectability of Transformers, and they're often things that Hasbro has not yet made. And I'm just going to be dealing with Hasbro here, not the Japanese toy company, because just for sake of simplicity. There's even, third-party characters from the animated series that don't get made, that get picked up by these other vendors and these other manufacturers, usually in China and Hong Kong, as far as where they're situated. One of the more interesting things about third-party parts is they have kind of, what the fans call kits, because that sort of let you upgrade a figure. So you can take a hot rod and turn him into Rodimus Prime with extra parts that are sold to upgrade your existing official Hasbro toy into a more super deluxe version that's accurate to the lore and accurate to the content, but may not be available as far as a manufactured toy from Hasbro. Boy, not doing too good. I gotta exercise my mouth a little bit more before I record these next time. So these upgrade kits are pretty popular because, again, Hasbro doesn't make these parts. And so if you want to be able to upgrade, in this case, Hot Rod from the 1986 movie into Rodimus Prime when he gets the Matrix at the end of the film till all are one, these kind of kits let you do that. And that's why they're really beloved by a lot of Transformers fans, because it offers a way to get the figure exactly how you want. Another advantage of third-party figures is they can allow transformations that for multiple reasons, maybe legal reasons, Hasbro isn't going to make, especially in the US. So Megatron, who used to transform into a gun in the 80s, doesn't do that anymore because the gun looks very realistic, and you're not going to give that to kids. But third-party versions of Megatron can do that because they're not following, toy guidance or toy safety. And they'll conveniently rename the toys as well, so they won't sell it as Megatron, but for all intents and purposes, without the name and without the Decepticon logo, you know who this is, and by buying a third-party version of, in this case, Hedgemon, well, you can get him transforming into a gun. Now, recently there's been more and more kind of masterpiece versions that have been popping out, which are sort of the elite, like collector versions of Transformers for those uninitiated or who are not collecting them. So Cosmos here, who has not been made, you can get him in this scale and style, and they just simply call him Space Racer. Usually the names are very similar, and they're meant to invoke the same name without having to step on Hasbro's copyright for the name of that particular Transformer robot. So they get around it by just renaming them. And they usually, they meaning the third-party manufacturers, will leave off, as I said, the Transformers logo, the Decepticon or Autobot logo that's usually on the chest or on the arms of the figure. But often there's a spot intended for this logo, and with the ease of getting replacement logos, you can buy Sun Surge here, or not without the logo, and yeah, simply add it on because it's very easy to get replacement logos. Even eBay sells this, or Etsy, that kind of thing. So third-party companies are pretty smart in this, that they'll let you make the complete version, and a lot of times their figures honestly look more authentic, at least to the source material, versus the Hasbro one, because those usually have to appeal more to kids. So these are skewed directly to the adult collector. They're definitely not sort of kid-friendly, or at least kid-marketed. Another example is the Dinobots haven't really had modern versions of the figures done. I think they only Grimlock has been done in this series. So third parties will step in and they'll make the other dinosaurs, or Dinobots, and that way you could have a complete collection all in the same style. The most recent version isn't in the masterpiece version, if you will, so it's a slightly different aesthetic. And again, they'll change the name to what is this one, Guttor, but you know who it is, and you can have it standing right next to your Hasbro masterpiece Grimlock, and they look like you just have a perfect Dinobot collection. So that's a big allure of them, is that they're figures that fit into your Transformers collection that otherwise you aren't able to get because maybe Hasbro doesn't make it, or they don't make one as accurate to the source material because they have to consider kids or safety issues or the actual transforming features of the toy. So these third-party companies will make these robots that look and feel and pose and look on your shelf exactly like a Hasbro Transformer. And again, like Wreck-Gar here, the latest version that Hasbro has put out, is not as cartoon content accurate to the '86 movie as the third-party version. So that's what the appeal is. Sure, you could get this figure from Hasbro, but the third-party option gives you the opportunity to get a more accurate content version, which is what fans really love. All right, so the big question, the elephant in the room, why is Hasbro not sending out cease and desist orders on this? I mean, what is the deal? Shouldn't they just be taking out every one of these third-party companies for copyright infringement and you selling toys that are, losing sales? Well, there's a couple reasons for this. First off, with superheroes, it's very easy to trademark them. But with things like robots, it's a little different. They kind of have rules of their own.
Don't date robots!
Robots are just, well, from a trademark and a copyright standpoint, a little bit harder to do that for because they're machines. They're not, I know we look at them as characters, Optimus Prime, Starscream. They are characters to us, Transformers fans, but the way copyright rules work is it's a little bit harder to trademark a robot, especially a robot that's also a car, because those are just things. So that's one reason they're able to get away with it. It's just robots have kind of different rules about them. So that's to start with. There's a few other reasons, though, and a lot of that also has to do with Hasbro's, attitude towards the fan base and the fact that they want their fans to enjoy Transformer figures. So let's look a quick look at the Transformers fan base. Like with any toy fan base sold at retail, and I know, take a drink, right? When the Spectre Creative drinking game, every time I say 80% of sales are to kids, well, that while the Transformers collector fan base is very, very passionate and very loud online for any adult collector line, Motu, Transformers, Thundercats, Star Wars, they're much smaller than people realize. The far bulk majority of sales are to kids. Kids are the target audience for Hasbro with Transformers. That's where the money is. That's what makes them into a billion-dollar brand. Collectors are kind of gravy on top of that, and they're always going to cater to the collector, but not entirely. So when third-party figures come around, it's kind of viewed by Hasbro as high tide raises all ships. It's like they may not get to some of these items or, this version of different robots. And if another company is going to come along and give you an alternate head or a kit to upgrade the figure, it's all part of the enjoyment of that character for the fans. And Hasbro wants fans to be able to enjoy.
Care about M.E. My enjoyment.
The other thing is that every time you shut down kind of one of these companies making unlicensed product, bootlegs, third party, well, other ones just tend to crop up. It's really, a snake chasing its tail if you're trying to do a sweep and close down every single one of these companies, especially because a lot of them are doing it in the middle of the night. It'll be a regular vendor that makes toys for Hasbro, and then at nighttime, someone else takes over the factor and cranks out bootlegs or third party or unlicensed. It really does kind of happen like that. Or people will pay vendors off to pump out extra units after the company's order is complete. So, what actually would get Hasbro spurred into action to take legal maneuver and chase down one of these many third party manufacturers making unlicensed Transformers product? Well, the big thing is use of trademark names. So, you'll notice that they change the names, like Sun Chaser, or I'm sorry, I forgot what Cosmos was called. But if you actually use the name Optimus Prime or Convoy, as it is in Japan, that is when Hasbro will step in. So while there is a long arm of the law, if you're just making generic robot toys and they happen to look like they fit into the Transformers line, it's a little, not only is it, there are some legal hurdles, but it's just kind of like not worth the time, the squeeze being worth the juice, or the juice being worth the squeeze. Plus, it makes fans happy, and the last thing Hasbro wants to do is, sort of piss off the adult collector fans. While they may not be the majority of sales, they are valued. And then there's kind of the last point, is Hasbro's kind of done this themselves. So going after third-party companies and trying to shut them down, well, it might just shed a light on some of their own practices, especially back in the vintage line. So while there are some toys that Hasbro puts out now that are licensed and meant to be exact replicas of manufacturers' cars, like supposed to be an actual licensed car, there are some cars, especially in the vintage line, that, well, it's not quite a Lamborghini, but, it's pretty darn close, and they definitely didn't pay a license to use Lamborghini. So, yeah, there is some questionable stuff, especially in the early 80s with the Transformers line. I mean, granted, these were brought over from Japan as different toy lines and given a whole new background by Marvel Comics, but that's a YouTube video for another time. So, yeah, Sun's Streaker here. It's best almost not to shine a light on something like that. So when third-party companies come along and are making toys that fit into the Transformers line, it's almost better not to rock the boat because we're kind of all guilty of it to some degree. And, as long as fans are happy, it's really something that Hasbro's not going to aggressively fight. Because at the end of the day, if it satisfies a need in the market that they're not going to pursue, but it's still getting you to buy more Transformers overall, it's kind of better to just turn a blind eye and keep making toys for kids and collectors and Transformers fans of all ages. I hope this video was enlightening, and if you liked it, a subscription and a thumbs up is always appreciated. Helps tell YouTube to share it with more people. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more content on Spectra Creative.